Everybody, welcome to the Point. This is our special edition that we're doing before all of the shows that we have scheduled for today. This is a special edition. We're bringing back a guest that we had on Monday. We're Stan Campbell, who is going to come on. And when he was on Monday, we talked about de-escalating officer encounters, which, strangely enough, goes with what happened in Atlanta last Friday in a Wendy's parking lot. Now, as most of you know, overnight in Atlanta, in at least 1 to 2 precincts or zones, as they call them in Atlanta, the officers called out. Also, earlier in the day, one of the two officers involved in the shooting was charged with multiple counts, including count of murder for shooting Mr. Brooks in the back as he fled. Now we're going to welcome to the show. I'm not going to do a long dissertation here, folks. This is cut and dry. I'm going to bring in Stan, and we're going to jump into this topic because I want to get an expert opinion and not mine because I'm far from an expert. So let's welcome to the show again, twice in 1 week, Mr. Stan Campbell.
Hey Eric, how you doing,
Bud,
brother?
how you doing today? Um,
Uh, yeah,
I love to see your face back on camera again. I wish it wasn't having to have you here to explain another crazy incident
yeah,
going on in our country. So let's break this down. First, your thoughts. I'm sure you've seen the video. Um,
yes. I watched all of it yesterday.
okay, so what's your thoughts on that? As an officer, there's twofold. We have one side saying justified, the other side, which is funny. A lot of the people saying it wasn't a justified killing. A lot of them are media people, which is
Yeah,
strange. I
yeah,
love them, but they're also not police officers and probably have never held a firearm in their life.
yeah.
Don't understand fight or flight at all. What's your thoughts on what you saw in the video?
Okay, and I'll have to start this because being that I started critiquing these shooting incidents, I have to start off as a human,
Yeah,
and prayers go out to the families involved, the deceased, and also the affected officers because taking someone's life actually changes yours forever. So I'm gonna start off saying that. When I looked at the case, I kind of, walk away from the emotion of it. Anytime I look at it, to critique or review, and but we are talking about a human being's life being taken. But when you look at it, I start putting myself in that place, like most people that are experts that have placed a badge on their chest, and I think about a few things. One is you have to always consider the mindset of the officers and the root cause, and I'm gonna talk about that in a second. But also, you know, what what is happening at the time, the last 60 seconds before they pull the trigger is usually what I concentrate on because everything else kind of goes out the window. I don't talk about people's, criminal history and stuff like that. It comes down to what move or action took place 60 seconds before the officer decided I have no other choice but to pull this trigger. Now, in the majority of the cases, I don't say good shooting, bad shooting. There's legal shootings, with a matching level of morality, and then there's legal shootings without that are just covered by the courts. And people don't talk about that too often. But when we talk about that, we're saying I have the legal right to shoot someone, but is it righteous? I mean, should I do this? Like grandma with a knife that's 90 years old coming at me, walking, coming at me very slowly. Could I knock it out of her hand, although I have the right to shoot her in the head? Absolutely. So I'm talking about stuff like that. In this particular case, when I looked at it, you have, the talk about Mr. Brooks being shot in the back. It makes everybody immediately go to the Walter Scott case in Carolina, where officer still taser incident. This gentleman runs away from Walter Scott runs away from the car. Officer gives chase. He pulls out his taser, and he even on the radio says taser, taser, taser. Mr. Scott grabs it, pushes it, and he throws it down, and he runs about 20 yards, and the officer just lays loose about 6 shots, maybe four in the back, and kills him, and then plants the taser near him. Okay, totally different. That is a illegal shooting, murder, proper charges. But then you get something like this, because every incident is going to be different. And this particular incident, different intention. You have Mr. Brooks deciding at the point they're about to put handcuffs on that he's not going to jail. And he resists, not just resist in trying to get away. He's actively fighting the officers. Now, a lot of officers talk about resisting when I dropped tears for George Floyd, a couple of weeks ago. And it's because what his resistance totally different from the resistance we're talking now. He's handcuffed. He's got a knee on his neck, and the man is punishing him by doing so. Totally different. This particular case, this man, Mr. Brooks, he's fighting the officers. He's beating up two officers. They're still trying to do what they can to not hurt him. There was a point where, it looks like one officer was trying to put the taser in the meaty portion of his thigh to try to get him to stop resisting. They're still giving verbal commands. They're telling him to stop fighting, stop resisting. Another officer that was behind him, I think that was the initial officer, he actually wraps his arms around him, and it almost looks like his arms come up to encircling his neck. And then he releases it. And then that's when Mr. Brooks is able to maneuver and pull the taser away and disarm the officer. Now, this causes problems for both sides, of course. Now, not only has he shown that I can beat you up, I just took your weapon. These things are taken into consideration when you're talking about charging people, actually the conviction, the arguments. Because now I'm chasing down a man that has just disarmed me with one weapon, and all and then he actually not just runs away with it, he turns around and with his back to the officer points and fires the taser. Now, I don't know if you've been tased before. I have twice because I was a taser instructor. It does immobilize you. It takes you out. You can't do anything while they're discharging it. With that being the case, I too, in that particular case, knowing that I got beat up, I got a weapon taken away from me, if I get immobilized, the possibility of my firearm being taken, I'm going to take that shot too. Now, where it starts getting tricky is talking about imminence, whether your life and limb is in danger at the time, or in proximity, distance. Is he turned toward me, coming at me? Is he? And if he's not, in this particular case, he wasn't. He still went shot from behind. But when at the point, you still have to think, I have to defend my life, because in the next 60 seconds after this, if I get caught with this taser that he shoots at me, he can take my gun. Now, I see the officer flinch. I can't tell if it hit him or not before the shots, and then the shots ring out. Okay. Unfortunate, tragic, but in my opinion, in that particular case, because of what he did, I I see it as a legal shooting.
Wow. At least you have the courage to come out. A lot of officers haven't come out and called it that. They've called it different things. I've seen the argument that he was sleeping and it took 41 minutes to escalate it to harassment. I mean, I know that there's a lot of videos out showing various things, not just this shooting, but there's another one that had 8 officers surrounding somebody. I don't know where it was, somewhere in the South, I think, but 8 officers surrounding a guy who was just standing on a sidewalk, a black man standing on a sidewalk, and it was a bunch of officers, and one of them had his hand on his holster. I saw that video over the weekend also, which it always bugged me, even when I've done anything. Get your hand off your
Um,
weapon. If you're just asking somebody a question and they're not doing anything, you don't need to be doing anything. I think escalation, and I know you probably might agree with me on this, is if you're having a peaceful conversation and nobody's really breaking. At the end of the day, the dude even they bring out the sergeant. Sergeant even says, "You're not breaking any laws. You're free to go." Like,
yeah,
so when I look back, then you look back to Mr. Brooks's case. He's passed out, clearly drunk. Whether it's his daughter's birthday the next day or not, I don't think matters at all. And I know
yeah,
the media wants to grab the the heartstrings there.
yeah,
It's a difficult case, right? Because then there's people
No,
calling.
it's really difficult, and and here's some things too, because I'm don't think I'm going to just
Yeah,
not give you both sides of it,
yeah,
because I too believe that I mean, the officer made some bad decisions, building up to this. And I'm not even going to talk about de-escalation. I'm talking about doing his job, and I mean, it's obvious this man is sleeping in the driveway of the Wendy's, drive-through, excuse me, and he should have acted. One of the things that he did when because of his body camera footage and what I was able to see with the 43 minutes, and you guys can look for yourself, about minute 3:33, he's sitting in his car. He's already told him. He walks up, he gives him the excuse. Although later you find, through his conversation with the second officer, that he knew, he smelled the odor of alcohol and had all of the things, ready to break down for the DUI officer, which is the secondary officer that shot, I believe. And he had all the signs of DUI, but he did not move forward and put the man in his car like he should have. He then allows the man. He gives him an excuse initially, saying, "Oh, are you tired? Are you tired? Well, go over there and sleep it off." Well, he knew he was drunk, and he shouldn't even let him get behind the wheel and move forward. He should have talked the man into his car. You got a lot of officers sometimes, by not doing their jobs, you cause more problems later on, like in this case, and in a deadly force incident. But he should have done his job. Should have put him in cuffs and put him in the car, or put him in the car, then later cuff him. Just say, I'm detaining you. I'm checking you out. Want to make sure you're all right. Talk him into the car so you don't have to deal with that. A lot of times, and what you discussed a little while ago with hand on the gun, you got to remember, a lot of these officers, they have the badge, they have the gun, but they don't have the physical ability to defend themselves nor others. And a lot of these departments don't give enough training like they should. Now they train, like LAPD. I think once a month they train with firearms. Oklahoma City, they every like twice a year with firearms. But you have to also continue to train with you to physically handle someone, because 90% of the time that's what you're going to be doing. And the problem with it is that under stress and with conflict, where you believe that you could be hurt or killed, your primal brain kicks in, and it's going to be survival. So fight, flight, and freeze, like we discussed. The difference being, once you say that you're under arrest, you have to kind of move forward with that, or in your mind, officers do. It's like, okay, I can't unarrest you, and I can't just take this butt whooping, so I got to keep going. That also falls back on my other side, which is, because I am Mr. De-escalation, so I'm going to tell you and your the listening audience that if you are arrested, take the L, take the loss, go to jail, stop fighting these officers, because that is the greatest problem that causes this. The root cause is the resistance. Sit your butt in that car, go to jail instead of going to your grave. It does not make any sense. You should not die over running a stop sign. You should not die over being drunk in the Wendy's parking lot. And I know I went long on that, but
No, no,
I
no.
have to make these points because, I mean, it's ridiculous that we keep going through these over and over again. And these are all emotionally driven cases.
Yeah.
People are dying, but officers are dying. They're afraid. Citizens are dying. They're afraid. Everybody's afraid. And we have to figure out, how do we do this? And you can't de-escalate on one side. The de-escalation is two-sided.
Yeah.
Stop resisting, comply, and complain later.
Let me ask you this, Dan, and I've seen this argument come forward, and I'm a big fan of Trevor Noah. I love his show. I watch it every
I
night.
didn't like Trevor's last thing, but go ahead. I like Trevor too.
Yeah, Trevor is, exciting, but Trevor brought up an interesting point, which I love to throw to you as somebody who could give feedback on. Several times during the conversation, Mr. Brooks says, "I could just walk home." Uh, I granted he's in his car. He's passed out.
Uh,
So the DUI is there clearly, uh,
yeah,
without a doubt. But there's a many different ways that this could go. Right. One side of
yeah,
the argument is just let the dude walk home.
yeah. Well, the problem is with that, and,
Yeah.
and the reason why officers can't do that, and Trevor doesn't know. I mean, he's an entertainer.
Yeah.
But being a cop, if you allow, say, hey, and you don't do your job and say, okay, hey, just walk home, right? Well, what happens? People do this all the time. As soon as the officer leaves, they come back over, they get back in the car, and then now they're driving drunk again,
Yep.
because you can't confiscate their keys. I've seen officers in the past, yes, They grab the keys and they launch them into a field so they can't find it, right? But that's still, they're not doing their jobs.
That's some good shit
So,
right
but
there.
if
I
the
like
person
that.
gets in the
Just hold on,
car,
let me just
yeah.
chuck your keys. It's funny.
No,
Sorry.
no, no. People did that.
Yeah.
This is it's some bull crap, but officers do stuff, because they're lazy.
Yeah.
And but what Trevor doesn't understand is that if I allow that man if I leave the Wendy's, say, okay, you're gonna walk home, he starts walking and he sees me, make the corner, he turns back around, gets in the car, and he drives out of Wendy's drunk and crashes into Trevor's wife and kills his kid. Now I'm to blame again because I didn't do my job. Does that make sense?
It does.
So, I mean, we can't be playing around with this. And yes, officers, have some leeway with different things, but there's certain things you can't. You cannot allow someone that can endanger somebody else to leave the scene. You have to make the arrest. You're compelled to make the arrest. He should have made the arrest a long time before. He didn't want to do his job. Um, and it's shameful. And by waiting for a DUI officer and waiting for 40 minutes, because Trevor's right about that, it took 40 minutes for them to make this arrest. This is horrible. They didn't even have to do all that they did on the sobriety test.
Yeah.
Put
I
him in
don't
the car.
understand why they didn't just put him in the car. Like,
Put him in the car. You got enough.
you give them the spiel for officer safety, which works 100% of the time. Hey, I'm going to put you in for officer safety. I smell alcohol. Let's put you in the car. There's clearly a crowd.
Absolutely.
There's multiple cameras involved. Put them in the car. We should have. This isn't. This is a whole new world we're in. And if these officers, there's no way they don't know what happened in Minneapolis. There's. It's Georgia again. Let's keep in mind we already had the shooting in Brunswick. We already had
Yeah.
which wasn't police related at all. It was three white
Right.
racists who decided a black man jogging just seemed like a cool thing to go hunt one day, which is that's Brunswick, Georgia, apparently. These officers just took their, we'll just sit here and have a chit chat. And all of a sudden, you could we all know what it's like to be drunk. I don't care who you are. If you're an adult, you've had a drink. If you've drank too much, you're either a funny drunk or you're a violent drunk. There's not an
Yeah.
in between drunk. There's not like you're not getting up. I don't
Yeah.
understand that. But I want to kind of keep going because I know we have short on time.
Yeah. I
So,
know we are.
so yesterday, the officer, one of the two, the officer who pulled the trigger, is
Yeah.
charged
Yeah.
and arrested
Yeah.
with murder.
I know.
Not anything, not, I mean, and then to counter that before you answer it, because I know you know where I'm going to go with this,
Yeah.
then the DA puts this out, who's also running for election, by the way, in
Yes.
November.
Uh,
And then the Georgia Bureau of Investigation releases a document going, we had no idea this was going. We're still investigating this shooting. This is an abrupt rush, and I don't know, and maybe you can answer this too as a three-tier question, but is this rush to judgment based off how long it took with George Floyd, which still I don't understand whether there was anything to review on that one. The video was cut and dry. That was
yeah.
boom. This
Well,
one is different, so I was
yeah.
shocked to see such 3 days.
Well, I mean, it comes down to the politics of it all. And, and you're right. I mean, these prosecutors, these DAs, these mayors, I mean, there's several across the nation that are making some really bad decisions. Okay. And, and they're doing that just so that they can look good for the citizens,
Yeah.
as a whole. And the citizens, I mean, they have the right to be angry about all these and seeing these over and over again. And the news media is, lighting the fire and putting and fanning the flames, and pushing out all these, and the internet is just so crazy. It's a crazy time right now, and it's a sad time because, like I said, people are dying. But the thing about it is, like, these prosecutors, the problem with it, that those citizens who don't understand this broken system, if you push the broken system too far, or push it beyond or faster than what it's supposed to go, that's when you start making mistakes. When you overcharge, that's when you start making mistakes. Because when you do that, like firing officers too quick because citizens want it done within the first 24 hours,
Yeah.
don't forget, they're under contract. If you do that, because we had a chief here in Oklahoma City that fired a bunch of people in 1 year. He's like, I'm just gonna start firing everybody. The problem is you look good for the citizens, but because they had to go through arbitration, because it's contractual, they get their jobs back plus back pay. So they get days off, vacation, and they get back pay from taking their jobs away too soon because they're under contract. They need to wait for due process. And right now, it seems like all these mayors and DAs are trying to bypass due process for officers, but you cannot do that. That's like, us putting citizens in jail and not having to have probable cause. Not going through with the investigation, you're just going off someone's word or someone's video.
So what do
You
you think?
know,
What was your thoughts on the police chief abruptly resigning less than 24 hours after the incident?
well, this is just my opinion.
Yeah.
All of these police chiefs are going, they're under some, extreme pressure. Um, we don't know behind the doors. The mayors lean on them, pretty hard. I think, these are appointed positions here in Oklahoma. I'm going to assume this is the same thing, under the mayor in Atlanta. But the pressure that they all feel to keep the citizens from going nuts and burning everything down again, they want to kind of give them a nibble, and having to deal with that, unpopular decisions, arresting officers, firing officers, is something that these chiefs have to deal with, because sometimes that's why they get paid the big bucks. You got to make these decisions that are not always aligned with your troops. But I have no idea, because I haven't heard why she did it. I can understand why she did it, because sometimes people are not just built for it. You got to be built for this.
But we've seen
And
it a lot, right? I mean, I know I live in the Pacific Northwest. We had we have our third police chief in like a year.
yeah,
First one resigned and went took a better job in Philly. New one came on. Of course, we still have protests. Just as of 3 hours ago, after an all-night standoff with protesters, Portland PD just cleared in one of these anonymous zones that's up in Seattle. But the mayor
yeah,
and the police are actually united on this. He's like, I don't want this. We see what that is, just a horribleness. I'm shocked that it's still going on in Seattle. Personally, they gave up a precinct
yeah.
and everything.
You're right. And what's funny about that, that there's a council person here in Oklahoma City. I'm not really into politics, but the only reason why I know this is because it's getting out that she's such a radical when it comes down to stuff like that. Someone tweeted her, how does she feel about the Seattle thing, and does she think that something like that could work here in Oklahoma City by taking over square blocks and grabbing rifles and having citizens defend it, and kicking cops out of that area. And she had nerve to say that in her defense, she did say she has to research it more, but she's not opposed of the idea. But when you do stuff like that, you're being irresponsible, man. People listen to you. You're pretty much giving them the green light to go do something stupid like that. And like, some of these people don't belong where they are, because they're causing more harm than good. And I too, the Seattle thing is out of control. The nation right now is hurting, man. There's just, but people are doing, like we talked last week about defunding the police. You don't even know what that is. You can't just think about taking away their money and keeping them from getting good officers, because right now nobody's real signing up for the job. But but you have to look for officers with good character to replace the ones with bad character, and push the ones with bad character out. That's the issue. And we're still talking about a small number, but it's these same guys over and over again.
Yeah.
We got to get them out.
And
But
Steve, real quick before you go,
don't fund them so that they can't get new people to replace, or you're going to have the same problem. And I'm sorry for interrupting you, but
oh
I'm
no,
saying
you're
one
good.
more thing.
Sorry,
The
I'm just
justice system,
monitoring time. So
yeah, I know the justice system is similar to the police departments in general. They're operating on square tires, right?
yeah,
And you can't come around and just air up one side, because it's still going to let out. And sometimes it's square tires with holes. These systems are so messed up. You have to figure out how to work within them. But by moving forward emotionally and overcharging, you're going to end up having problems with, because the citizens don't understand that no matter what, although they put it before a jury in most cases, the judge still comes back and says, at times, because you have the jury's instructions by the judge, he can say, okay, murder one or not guilty,
yeah.
when the charge should have been manslaughter that he should have been seeking, right? And then now you don't have that, and then you don't get what you want by pushing too hard. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Real fast, we have like 2 minutes, and I don't know if it's enough time to cover blue flu.
Oh, blue flu. Yeah, you know what? Let me jump in real quick so that I can cover blue flu.
Yeah.
I wrote in, I addressed on my Facebook page some officers, because I felt it, coming. Not here, but you know, when officers sometimes are treated like abused children. The citizens that you're sworn to protect hate you. Your department, who has turned this thing into a big business, are just pointing their finger at you and waiting to run a bus over you. And you said to keep moving forward and try to love both of them, like you love two parents that abuse you. Well, when you think about that, sometimes you need a strong leader, and that's the reason why I address the officers here and officers in general about the the influencers, those who have officers that come around them when they arrive, and at the end of shift, officers circle them just to hear about how their day went. The ones that control the officers, the FTOs and sergeants, those who right now kind of turn their head when they see stuff. But I'm saying, you are charged to take the department back over and show these young ones how to do this. And part of that is not quitting, because the majority of the citizens still care about you. It's just that you're getting a bad rap because policing and police officers and law enforcement, I mean, it's one of the only professions in which, the people that get the spotlight are the worst of you. And that number is small, but we see them over and over again. So it seems big, but you got to stick it out, stay in there and do the job like you're supposed to. If you didn't just grab a job just for the money.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I mean, that was good insight. Sorry to rush you, but
That's okay.
doing all these shows. But I'm happy you hopped on. I wanted to get your opinion. A lot of people asked, "Hey, can we get somebody who actually knows what we're talking about, not listen to Eric?" Which is fine. My wife doesn't even listen to me, so it works. So Stan, just so you know, you're my fill-in when people want to know the actual things. Uh, so
I'm
you're
here
my
for you.
guy. So I appreciate you taking the time to jump on and spend this time with us. So thank you so much. I'll put all your information below so folks can contact you and learn about your program. So
Yes, sir.
awesome, my friend. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you really soon. Be
All
safe.
right, bye, Eric.
Thanks, bud.
Let's get to the point.